Sometimes the most revealing moments happen when nobody expects them. No red carpet. No anniversary special. Just a podcast microphone, a casual conversation, and a man who has spent 30 years building one of television's most beloved marriages finally admitting something viewers never saw coming, that the love story almost didn't survive its own beginning. Mark Consuelos didn't plan to say it. He wasn't promoting a project or teasing a big reveal. He was simply talking the way people do when a conversation drifts somewhere honest, and suddenly he was describing the week he broke up with Kelly&Mark. Not years into their relationship. Not during some rough patch decades later. 1 week before their wedding. Let that sit for a moment because it matters. For 30 years, audiences have watched Kelly&Mark and Mark Consuelos as the couple who make forever look almost effortless. The morning banter. The inside jokes. The way they finish each other's sentences on live television without missing a beat. It's easy to assume a partnership like that was written in the stars from day one, that two people this comfortable together simply glided into happily ever after. But that's exactly why this confession lands so hard. It shatters the illusion of the effortless love story, and in doing so, it makes their marriage feel more real than it ever has before. Here's what actually happened in Mark's own retelling. He and Kelly met on the set of All My Children in the mid-1990s, playing on-screen love interests before that chemistry spilled into real life. They were young, barely into their 20s, falling fast and hard into something neither of them fully understood yet. And somewhere in that whirlwind, just days before they eloped, Mark got scared. He called it off. He's described his own reasoning bluntly. He was young. He was, in his words, foolish. And almost the moment the breakup happened, he understood the size of the mistake. He said it plainly, it was the most agonizing week of his life, one unlike anything he'd felt before or since. Think about what that really means. This isn't a man reflecting on heartbreak from a safe emotional distance. This is Mark Consuelos 30 years later, still able to access the exact weight of that week. That kind of clarity doesn't fade on its own. It sticks around because the fear underneath it was real, the fear of losing the one person who felt different from everyone else. And here's where the story becomes something more than a breakup anecdote. Kelly, understandably, didn't answer his calls. Whatever door had opened between them, she wasn't rushing to walk back through it. But fate, or maybe just the demands of daytime television, had other plans. The two of them were still co-stars. They still had promotional obligations together, including an appearance where they'd be filming a segment side by side, cameras rolling, no room to hide from each other. Picture that for a second. Imagine having your heart still raw from a breakup you caused, and then being handed a schedule that puts you directly across from the person you hurt, in front of an audience with nowhere to retreat. There's something almost cinematic about it, the universe essentially refusing to let them drift apart quietly. Mark has talked about seeing Kelly that day and being struck all over again by how much he wanted her back. Not because absence had made the moment more dramatic, but because seeing her reminded him of exactly what he'd been willing to throw away. After the segment wrapped, he didn't let her disappear into the city. He followed her. He asked her to walk with him through Central Park, and however reluctant she may have been, she agreed. This is the part of the story that deserves more attention than a passing headline gives it, because it says everything about who these two people are, both then and now. Kelly didn't take him back because he apologized. She gave him a chance to prove it. And Mark, in that walk, apparently didn't waste the opportunity. By the time they reached his apartment that same day, he wasn't asking for a second date. He was proposing marriage. It's worth sitting with how fast that turn happened, from a breakup to a walk to a proposal, all within hours. On paper it sounds impulsive. But maybe that's the wrong lens entirely. Maybe what looks like impulsiveness from the outside was actually clarity. Sometimes people don't need more time to know what they want. Sometimes losing something, even briefly, is what finally makes the truth impossible to ignore. And this is precisely why so many viewers feel emotionally invested when stories like this surface. It's not simply the drama of a breakup. It's the recognition of something deeply human, the idea that love isn't always steady and certain from the very beginning. Sometimes it stumbles. Sometimes it requires someone to almost lose it before they're willing to fight for it. That's not a flaw in the story. For a lot of people watching, it's the most relatable part of the entire thing. There's another layer worth exploring here, and it circles back to something else Mark has opened up about more recently, the influence of his late father, Saul Consuelos. In a separate reflection, Mark shared a piece of advice his dad once gave him, offered interestingly enough, right around a period when Mark was going through relationship trouble. His father told him something simple but profound: find someone who makes you better. Not someone who simply fits your life comfortably, but someone who challenges you to grow into a stronger version of yourself. When you place that advice next to the story of the pre-wedding breakup, something clicks into place. Because in a strange way, that panicked, immature decision to walk away might have been exactly the moment Mark needed to understand what his father meant. Losing Kelly, even for a week, forced him to confront what staying with her would actually require of him: commitment, maturity, the willingness to choose someone even when fear whispers otherwise. And once he understood that, he never let go again. This is what makes the story so much richer than a simple "they broke up, then got married" headline. It's not just an anecdote about a rocky start. It's a window into how two people build the foundation for something lasting. Real partnerships aren't necessarily defined by the absence of doubt. They're defined by what happens when doubt shows up anyway, whether people run from it or run toward the thing that scares them the most. And that's part of why audiences have stayed loyal to Kelly and Mark for 3 decades. It isn't just nostalgia for 2 soap opera stars who fell in love on camera and then again in real life. It's the ongoing sense that what viewers see now, the playful chemistry, the affectionate teasing, the way they still seem genuinely delighted by each other every single morning on their show, isn't a performance built on easy beginnings. It's something they had to choose more than once, starting with that terrifying week when it almost fell apart before it truly began. There's also something quietly reassuring in hearing this story now, decades into their marriage, rather than back when it happened. When a couple shares a story like this early on, it can feel uncertain, like the ending hasn't been written yet. But hearing it from 2 people who are still standing together, still co-hosting a morning show with the same warmth and humor that made audiences fall for them originally, changes the entire meaning. It becomes proof rather than possibility. It becomes evidence that a rocky start doesn't have to define an ending. It can simply be the first hard lesson in a much longer story. It also raises a bigger question worth sitting with, beyond just Kelly and Mark's specific history. How many long, successful relationships include a moment like this? A near miss, a scare, a decision almost made in fear rather than love, that never gets talked about publicly. Maybe more than people realize. Maybe the polished, camera-ready version of long-term love conveniently leaves out the mess in the middle, the moments where 2 people almost let go before they found the strength to hold on. Kelly and Mark's willingness to share this story, all these years later, does something valuable. It gives couples watching at home permission to acknowledge their own hard weeks, their own doubts, their own moments of almost walking away, without treating those moments as proof that the relationship is doomed. Sometimes those moments are simply the test. Not everyone passes it the same way Mark did, by chasing someone through a park and refusing to let fear win twice. But the underlying truth remains the same. Love that lasts isn't necessarily love that never faltered. It's love that got back up. There's a reason this story continues generating conversation among fans of the show, long after the podcast episode where it was first mentioned. It's because it reframes everything viewers thought they understood about this couple. Their on-screen ease isn't the absence of struggle. It's the result of having already faced the possibility of losing each other and choosing, deliberately and completely, not to let that happen again. Perhaps the reason so many people remain invested in Kelly and Mark isn't simply because they've spent decades in the spotlight. It's because audiences continue to see something genuine in the way they navigate life together, imperfections and all. A near-miss engagement. An agonizing week of silence. A walk through Central Park that changed everything. These aren't the kinds of details a couple manufactures for good publicity. They're the kinds of details that surface naturally, when 2 people have nothing left to protect because they've already built something real. And maybe that's why moments like this stay with viewers long after the cameras stop rolling, not because they reveal a scandal but because they reveal the truth underneath 30 years of laughter and morning television banter. That even the most enduring love stories usually survive because someone at some point refused to let go. So here's a question worth sitting with. If you've ever gone through a moment where you almost lost something, or someone, important, did that moment make the relationship weaker or did it end up making it stronger? Share your own experience in the comments, and if this story reshaped the way you see Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, let us know which part of it hit you the hardest.